So now what we need to do is that we need to make a request and send that text that the user is going to type. So in order to send it, we need to make a GET request. So I'm going to here use jQuery to do that. So I'm going to here use $sign and then GET to make a GET request. And then this GET is going to take the URL. The URL, I'm going to name it GET. And of course, this URL must be created in our Flask application. But for now, we don't have that route yet. But we need to create shortly, we need to create this /get. And this GET request is going to take the message that the user is going to type, which is the user text, which is this. So I'm going to say here, in an object, we need first to use the name. The name is user message. This is very, very important. It must be here user message. Here it must be user message. And then the message itself, which is the user text. So user message, and then the message, the user text. User text. And then after that, we just call the done, and then we upon done here we will pass I'm gonna pass a callback function to let us know that to return actually a response. So the response can be here data, can be named data. So this callback function will be sent upon success, and it will send us the data here in this function as a parameter. And then we can use this data in order to display an HTML inside our chat box here. So I'm going to use this data to get the data and display it. So what I'm going to do is that I'm going to make a reference to our chat box again, chat box, and then I'm going to say here dot append, and then I need to append the data. But this data we can't just pass it here. It's not gonna look amazing. Therefore, we need to pass it inside a HTML. So I'm gonna create an HTML and pass this data into our HTML. So I'm gonna create here a variable called bot HTML, which is the response from the chatbot. Because again, once the user sends the message to Flask, what's gonna happen is that Flask is gonna use this get response and send that response, which is the chat response, to the user. And that chat response is this data. It's just this data. So we need to here we need to use p paragraph, and then inside that paragraph I'm gonna again use span, and then span, and this, remember, span, this paragraph has a class called bot text. Remember, we have here bot text, so it must be bot text in order for this paragraph to have the same exact design. And then we need here to pass the data here plus, and then I'm gonna pass the data in between, data here, data. And finally, I'm going to pass the data here in the chat box, bot text. I'm going to pass not the data, but the bot HTML, because it contains the data as well as the tags. So it's going to look amazing. And we are done with this part. Let me add here semicolon with this part. But something very important we need to do is calling this function. We created this function, but we did not call it. So it's useless until we call it. So when should I call this function? Well, this function should be called upon clicking on the send button or upon hitting the enter key on the user's keyboard, right? Because once the user clicks on send or hits the enter keyboard, we need to call this get user response and execute this function to get to get the data from the user, to get the text from the user, and also to take care of all of this, all of these things. So we need here to do that. So I'm gonna here, again, I'm gonna use jQuery here to accomplish that. So I'm gonna make a reference to the text input, and then I'm gonna say dot key press, and then here function, the callback function, and then the event. And then what we need to do is that we need to first check the key that the user has clicked on. If the user clicks here e.which, to check which button the user clicked on. If the user clicked on button number 13, which is the enter button, if the user hits the enter button, then we need to call the get user response. And we also want to add to make another reference to the button here, button input, because we also want to execute the same function once the user clicks on the button, once the user clicks on this send. So I'm going to say here button input and then click, and then function, and then upon calling the callback function, I'm just going to use the get user response. I'm going to just call the get user response to send the message and take care of everything. So now we are done with the JavaScript part, which is just going to take the data from the user, and also it's going to display it here, and it's going to make a request. So it's going to make a lot of things. But this is the JavaScript part.